Ravi Deshmukh was a quiet Indian security guard with big dreams. Claudia Lancaster was a glamorous Beverly Hills billionaire with secrets as deep as her fortune. No one could have imagined that their forbidden romance, hidden behind the gates of a Hollywood mansion, would spiral into a deadly obsession, ending with Claudia's body buried beneath her own wine cellar and Ravi at the center of a shocking murder investigation. The mansion sat quietly at the top of Benedict Canyon Drive, hidden behind layers of security gates, camera systems, and lush, cascading gardens. It belonged to Claudia Lancaster, a name synonymous with luxury, philanthropy, and mystery. Claudia had inherited her fortune from her late husband, a venture capitalist who had died under sudden, strange circumstances years ago. Since then, she kept a low profile, hosting elegant but intimate gatherings, rarely photographed in public, and almost never seen without her trademark sunglasses and red lipstick. To the outside world, she was a beautiful enigma. When Ravi Deshmukh was assigned to the Lancaster estate, it was just another job to him. He had worked in Los Angeles for 3 years, since arriving from Mumbai with dreams of making something of himself. The American dream hadn't been easy. Ravi worked long shifts, took night courses in criminal justice, and lived in a cramped apartment in Koreatown. But this posting felt different. There was something surreal about guarding a 38,000 square foot home with marble floors, hand-painted ceilings, and priceless art lining the walls. Everything smelled expensive, everything echoed. Ravi's job was simple: monitor the perimeter, report any suspicious activity, and keep a low profile. At first, he barely caught a glimpse of Claudia. She'd sweep past him in flowing designer gowns, often on the phone, barely acknowledging his presence. But over time, small things began to change. She began offering him warm smiles. Then came short conversations: how he liked the job, if the hours were too long, if he preferred coffee or tea. She seemed fascinated by him. In a world where everyone wanted something from her, Ravi didn't ask for a thing. The connection grew quietly but intensely. Ravi was drawn in by her elegance, her poise, and her sadness. Claudia was unlike anyone he had ever met. Older, yes, but magnetic in a way he couldn't explain. She spoke of loneliness, of being surrounded by wealth but not warmth. Ravi listened. Why? Died, unable to believe that someone like her could be opening up to someone like him. Their moments became secret and sacred. A glass of wine left out for him after hours, a handwritten note thanking him for watching over the estate. Eventually, a kiss in the shadows of the rose garden. They were careful. No texts, no photos, no trace. Claudia had too much to lose, and Ravi knew what people would say if they found out. But in that hidden world of late, night whispers and locked bedroom doors, none of it mattered. They belonged to each other, if only in the dark. As the weeks passed, Ravi began to see the mansion not as his workplace, but as his world. Claudia made promises, vague ones, about changing his life, helping him build a future beyond guard shifts and small apartments. And he believed her. In his eyes, this wasn't just an affair. This was a love story, a second chance, a destiny. But what Ravi didn't realize was that Claudia Lancaster never made promises she couldn't break. The romance between Ravi and Claudia deepened quickly, becoming a secret world neither of them could resist. Ravi started spending more time inside the mansion than outside it. His shifts blurred with personal hours. He stayed late under the excuse of extended patrols, but in reality he was dining on caviar, drinking Claudia's expensive wine, and slipping into her king-sized bed after the staff had left. Claudia indulged him. She found it thrilling, the danger of it all, the absurdity of sneaking around with a man who earned less in a year than she spent on shoes in a month. But what began as thrilling soon took a darker turn. Ravi became emotionally attached in ways Claudia hadn't expected. He started asking questions: where she was going, who she was meeting. He wanted her attention constantly. The more she gave, the more he demanded. When she pulled away, even slightly, his behavior changed. He'd grow quiet and cold, staring at her with intense, unreadable eyes. At first, she dismissed it as insecurity, but it soon became clear that Ravi was spiraling into obsession. He started showing up outside of his shifts, uninvited. Once he followed her to a private gallery event, lurking in the background and watching her from a distance. He told her he was protecting her, but Claudia knew he was keeping tabs. She'd never had anyone cling to her like this. Men in her world came and went easily, always aware of the transactional nature of their relationships. Ravi, however, wasn't playing by those rules. He wanted something real, something permanent. Claudia tried to create space. She offered him a generous bonus and suggested he take some time off. Ravi refused. He insisted he was fine, that he needed to stay close to her in case of danger. When she stopped responding to his subtle advances, he escalated. Late one night, she awoke to find him standing silently outside her bedroom door, claiming he heard noises. Claudia felt a chill she couldn't ignore. The fantasy was beginning to unravel. Matters grew worse when Claudia was seen having lunch with Elaine Marchand, a French art dealer and long-time friend. She had known Elaine for years, and though there was nothing romantic between them, Ravi believed otherwise. To him, Claudia's affection belonged only to him. He couldn't bear the idea of another man entering her world, especially one who seemed more suited to it. His jealousy consumed him. He began logging Claudia's comings and goings, tracking her through the estate's cameras, and even reading notes meant for her staff. Claudia confronted him gently at first. She reminded him of the boundaries between them, of the risks they both faced. But Ravi wasn't listening anymore. He believed they were meant to be together, that she was testing his loyalty, not rejecting his love. In his eyes, they were already living a love story, and anyone who came between them was the enemy. Claudia didn't know it yet, but she had crossed a dangerous threshold. The affair she once considered fleeting and harmless had become something she could no longer control. Ravi wasn't just in love. He was losing grip on reality. It was a bright Sunday morning when the first whispers of Claudia's disappearance began to circulate. Her assistant Marla arrived at the estate just after 9 a.m. to find the house unusually quiet. The dog, Claudia's cherished Yorkshire Terrier, hadn't been fed. The kitchen staff hadn't received their usual list of instructions for the day. The housekeeper knocked on Claudia's bedroom door, then opened it to find the bed neatly made and untouched. Her purse was still on the dresser, her phone plugged in beside the bed. The oddest detail of all, her passport, normally kept in her travel drawer, was still there. When Marla called Ravi, he answered calmly. He said Claudia had told him the previous evening that she was leaving on a spontaneous trip to France, something she did from time to time. According to him, she'd left late at night with a single suitcase, driven herself to a private airfield. But that didn't make sense. Claudia never traveled without informing her staff. She never left without her dog, and she certainly didn't drive herself. 2 days passed without a word. Claudia's closest friends began making calls. Her lawyer hadn't heard from her. Her charity board said she'd missed a critical virtual meeting. Alarm bells started ringing, the police were contacted, and a missing person report was filed. Given her wealth and high profile, authorities acted swiftly. Beverly Hills detectives arrived at the mansion and began their initial interviews. Ravi repeated his story. Claudia left on her own, had mentioned a short trip, and didn't seem upset or worried. He even showed officers a text message from Claudia's number saying, "Gone for a few days, don't worry." But something about his calm demeanor didn't sit right. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't confused. He was rehearsed. Detectives requested access to the estate's extensive surveillance system. Ravi was cooperative, offering passwords and pointing them to the control room. But when tech experts reviewed the footage, they discovered a 3-hour gap, missing data between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. on the night Claudia vanished. It was the exact window Ravi claimed she had left. The system hadn't crashed. It had been manually wiped. Investigators started looking closer. They found no record of a private flight booked under Claudia's name. Her bank accounts showed no unusual transactions. Her last phone activity was a call to Marla that ended just after dinner, with no mention of travel. Suspicion began to mount. Detectives returned to the mansion for a full forensic sweep. Dogs searched the property. The pool, guest houses, and garage were checked in detail. Finally, they turned to the wine cellar, a room Claudia had renovated just months earlier. One officer noticed the floor felt hollow in a small, narrow corner near the back wall. When the marble tiles were removed, the search turned grim. Beneath the floor was a shallow cavity, hastily lined with plastic and fabric. Inside lay the body of Claudia Lancaster. She was wrapped in fine silk sheets, her face bruised, her neck marked by deep, unmistakable signs of strangulation. It was no accident, no mystery trip. She had never left the mansion at all. The discovery of Claudia Lancaster's body sent shockwaves through the Beverly Hills community and the national media. The glamorous billionaire, once the symbol of quiet elegance, had been found murdered in her own home, hidden beneath her custom-built wine cellar floor. The police now had a high-profile homicide on their hands, and all eyes turned to the one person whose story no longer made sense: Ravi Deshmukh. Ravi was taken into custody the same day Claudia's body was discovered. He had been found at a rundown motel in San Diego, less than 2 hours from the Mexican border. Inside his duffel bag were a stack of Claudia's credit cards, $40,000 in cash, and a forged Indian passport with a different name. He didn't resist arrest, but his calm demeanor unsettled detectives. It was as though he had prepared for this moment. Back at the station, the interrogation revealed even more contradictions. Ravi admitted to being in a romantic relationship with Claudia, but claimed it had become emotionally abusive. He said she toyed with his feelings, dangled promises of a better life, and then abruptly cut him off when she grew bored. According to him, he had planned to leave the estate that night, but Claudia had begged him to stay. He described a sudden argument, a misunderstanding, a tragic accident, but the evidence told a different story. The autopsy revealed that Claudia had been strangled slowly, not in a moment of rage, but with deliberate, sustained force. There were signs of a struggle, defensive wounds on her hands and arms, bruises on her chest. The silk sheets used to wrap her body had fibers matching Ravi's uniform embedded within them. His fingerprints were found on the tiles that had been pried open in the cellar, and his DNA was under Claudia's fingernails. Most damning of all was the digital trail he had failed to erase. Surveillance logs showed Ravi had accessed the camera system shortly after 10 p.m., the night of the murder. He had used a secure administrator login to delete specific files, targeting only the main hallway and entry points. Furthermore, location data from Claudia's phone showed it had never left the estate. The text message Ravi showed police had been sent from her phone after she was already dead. Prosecutors painted Ravi as a man consumed by obsession and resentment. A once humble security guard who became addicted to power, privilege, and the fantasy of belonging to a world that was never truly his. When Claudia tried to end things, he saw it as betrayal, not rejection. He didn't just want her love, he wanted control, and when that control slipped through his fingers, he chose the unthinkable. The press feasted on every detail. Tabloids splashed headlines about the billionaire and the bodyguard, speculating wildly about their relationship. The Lancaster family, grief-stricken and humiliated, remained largely silent. Claudia's sister released a brief statement condemning the media frenzy and asking for privacy as they mourned. Meanwhile, Ravi sat behind bars awaiting trial, no longer the quiet man at the gates, but the central figure in a real-life tragedy that had shattered one of Los Angeles's most powerful families. The courtroom was packed on the day Ravi Deshmukh's trial began. News crews lined the steps outside, cameras flashing as family members, lawyers, and journalists streamed in. The murder of Claudia Lancaster had become one of the most talked-about cases in recent California history. The public was obsessed with every detail: the shocking romance between a billionaire socialite and her security guard, the hidden body beneath the floor, and the dramatic manhunt that ended at a roadside motel. Now, justice was to be served. The prosecution came prepared with a mountain of evidence. They told the jury this was a case of obsession and betrayal, a love that curdled into murder when Ravi couldn't accept the end of the affair. They presented photos of the crime scene, video footage showing Ravi's last moments on the property, and the forensic findings that linked him directly to Claudia's body. They showed the messages he had sent her, first sweet and longing, then bitter and threatening. And they emphasized the lengths he went to afterward, deleting surveillance footage, fleeing town, and trying to create a false identity. The defense took a different approach. They didn't deny the relationship, nor did they deny that Ravi had been at the estate that night. But they argued that Claudia was emotionally manipulative. They claimed she used Ravi for companionship, promised him love and a better life, and then discarded him coldly when he became inconvenient. They painted Ravi as a victim of power imbalance, emotionally vulnerable and pushed over the edge in a moment of despair. They suggested the death was unplanned, a terrible accident during an argument, not a premeditated act. Still, the evidence was hard to overcome. Experts testified that the scene had been staged, that the floor had been carefully pried up and replaced. The pathologist explained that the bruises on Claudia's body were consistent with a struggle lasting several minutes, not a single moment of loss of control. Police described the way Ravi had accessed security systems with deliberate precision. It was clear that this wasn't an impulsive crime. It was calculated. Over the course of the 3-week trial, public opinion turned sharply against Ravi. At first, some had viewed him as a tragic figure, a poor immigrant lured into a world far beyond his reach. But as the facts unfolded, sympathy faded. His composed behavior after the murder, his attempt to escape justice, and his lack of remorse painted a chilling picture. In the end, the jury took less than 2 days to reach a verdict. Ravi Deshmukh was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the verdict was read, he remained emotionless, staring forward, as if already resigned to his fate. Claudia's family later held a private memorial at a vineyard she had loved. In her memory, they established a foundation to support victims of intimate partner violence, an effort to bring meaning from a senseless tragedy. The mansion on Benedict Canyon was eventually sold, its beautiful facade hiding the dark legacy it would always carry. The story faded from headlines, but it remained a haunting reminder of how power, love, and control can twist into something fatal when the lines are crossed too far.